So, you want to build a dungeon. Well, I'm going to show you just that using a tool here called Dungeon Scroll. Now, I'm just going to create a new file just so everything's back to normal. And I can show you over here on the left all the different tools that are used. So, if you look in here, you got all these on the left, and then over on the right, there's a lot more in-depth things you can work around with to help you really customize your maps. But first off, we will start with the options here. We've got snap, and I'll show you what that means. So it basically centers or uncenters the little marker on the grid. So if you look the way, see the way it sticks to the corners, that's when snap is on. And then if you turn snap off, you have free reign to just kind of go wherever you want. It doesn't snap to the corners or the edges. It gives you even more freedom. I personally like snap, so I'm going to stick it back on. And we're going to start with the rectangle one. Now the rectangle one, you basically click and drag, and you can create it as big as you want. I'm going to go by 6 by 6 there, and it creates a lovely little room. It's got the nice cross hatching on the edge there. You can go bigger, and again, you've got yourself 2 rooms. Now you can connect these 2 rooms and create a wee corridor, but if you look there, there are 2 of those like black lines. Now we don't want those, so actually to get rid of those, you cover over them, and it'll create it as if it's one big room. So that's handy, but don't worry about that. If you want to put a door, you can literally go to the door tab over here and draw a red line right across where you want it, and it creates a nice wee door icon. So there's 2 wee doors right there. Now, and they can be as big as you want. Like, they can be huge. Like, here's a giant door just to show how big it is. But I don't actually want a giant door there, so I'm going to go up and do the undo button right there, which is handy. So that's gone. Now, this next one is the paintbrush or the path brush, and it lets you create very just how, like, it's a free draw tool to let you create whatever, like, shape or size tunnels almost that you'd want to see that there. So, and then they obviously don't have that rectangular shape to them, and you can make them a wee bit bigger or edit them out, and you can make this fatter if you want. You kind of draw it as if it's like using the paintbrush. So we'll create a big chamber here, and see that edge, and you don't like that, so I'm just going to draw over it like that, and there you go, kind of round it off a wee bit. Now the next handy wee tool that you can do with this is that the rectangle one and all the other ones can overlap each other. So if I put a rectangle one over my drawn one, you see the way it overwrites it there and just becomes straight rectangle. So you can move from rough cavern maybe to cut stone almost in your dungeons. Now this next one here, you're able to draw whatever chamber you want, and it'll just chop right out like that, and you get a nice like rough looking cave system almost looking, which is quite nice. And then I want to erase that, let's say, so I'll go back up here and I go back to maybe the rectangle or the free draw, and I just kind of make sure I fill the whole thing in, and that should be it gone. So that's the erase function as well. It also works as well with the rectangle, where you can just take away chunks like that, which is quite handy. And don't forget to turn it off. So for the next part, just then, we are going to look at drawing walls, like just small little walls that'll be inside a room. So with that function there, you can literally just kind of draw a line as you want, and it just kind of pops up like this. You can do any shape you want. You can even, if you need to, write something down, something like this. Hello. Just I don't know when you'd need that, but it's handy for drawing little walls and stuff inside your rooms. As well as that, you've also got the stairs. I find it handy to keep the stairs on snap, so they kind of line up with your rooms that you're building them in. So again, you click and drag, and then you can make them as long or as short as you want. And then if you move the arrow up and down or in and out, you can make them as wide or as thin as you need to be. So that's one thick enough staircase there, and here we'll make another smaller one. See the way I'm moving it in there, and it gets thinner as you move the mouse closer towards the center. So we'll make that one there, and that's that. Next, we're going to look at the select tool. Now this can be very useful, but can be a bit tricky to work with. You basically circle whatever it is you want to copy, and then using your keyboard function Control-C, you copy it. And then just like on a Word document, you Control-V to paste it. Then you can put it down wherever you want. And then you can press the letter or and rotate it, which has a lot of uses. And then when you're happy enough, click it in, and that's it done. Okay, for the next part of this, we're going to look at the more in-depth functionality over here on the right hand side. You can mess around with all the colors of like the background in there. You see now if you click on that little square, you can mess around with whatever colors you want to be, depending on what kind of dungeon you're building. Maybe it's underwater, you want it to be light blue. Maybe it's in lava, so it's going to be red, or whatever you want it to be. And you can also change the color of the lines that actually draw the walls themselves. So that can be useful, especially if you're trying to create a theme going on with your dungeon. You can you can also mess with the thickness or thinness of the lines of the drawings, as well as the dash stroke, which can be useful in some instances if you want to create, like, I don't know, an invisible wall or something like that to show that there's a wall but it's not as clear as before. You can also remove the hatching if you'd like, or invert it so it's inside. That's an aesthetic choice, I suppose, yourself. I quite like it, but if you would like to remove it, that's the option to do so there. You can also now mess with the shadows that the map creates. So you can turn it off, that button there, and you can notice now around the walls that the shadows will pop on and off. See them there? So that's, again, an aesthetic preference if you want it. And then you can also change the color of the grid. So of that, you notice at the top there as well, you can also turn off the grid if you wish, and you can also mess with how thick and thin the lines are with that as well. Okay, and the last thing I want to show you is this maze generation here on the side. You can see now it's in extra. You can mess with all these functions here on the side, how thick and wide and how high and how many cells you want your maze to be. But once you've decided on all these, and it's well worth an experimentation, you can click up here on generate, and it will just make a maze for you, which is brilliant. It saves you a lot of work. It's quite cool now. And look, if we can undo that, and I'll chuck all these values up a bit, and we'll just see what the maze looks like as well. So let's check that up and generate a new one, and boom, you've got a much bigger maze. And I think that's a really cool function to have, especially if you're trying to create a massive labyrinth. So there you go, there's that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a small dungeon. Now this one's going to be kind of hitting all the main points that every dungeon sort of needs to have, like an enemy room, a trap room, a red herring, and like a boss room. And I'll show you kind of like a very general basic layout, and then obviously from this you can go and create your own depending on whatever you specifically need. But to start off, I'm going to use the rectangle function, and I'm going to create a small little entryway, and as the name describes, this is where the players enter in here. Now, you can add some flavor text to this yourself, but essentially this is just where they are. They enter in here, and from here you create your corridors that lead to different areas of the dungeon. Now, I'm also going to stick a wee door here, which will give the rogue maybe some locks to pick, or I want to maybe create a bigger door here to make a grander entrance. But once you've got that kind of set up, you can then maybe, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to write myself a wee note using this wall brush, and I'm going to zoom out just a little bit and write in, this is the entryway. Look at that lovely fancy arrow. Okay, so I know that that's where they enter from. That's just a wee note tip for me. Okay, and then we move on to making some other rooms. Now first I'm going to just build a nice big room here, and this one is going to be one of the fight rooms. You kind of want to make your fight rooms a bit big so players have some room to maneuver. Now obviously depending on the encounter you have in mind, maybe you want a teeny tiny corridor maybe for them to fight in, but in general make it a nice fight room with a few obstacles, like here's a wall that maybe somebody can hide behind, give them a bit of cover, or maybe one of your players could do that. But generally a big fight room is nice because it gives people room to maneuver in, and it also means that the wizard doesn't explode everyone with a fireball, which is always a hazard. So we've done that room, and then we'll just create a wee corridor out of here, and just kind of, yeah, we'll stick a fancy shaped room up here. So I'm not going to put it in there, but I'm going to put it up. Let's see, I'll put it up here somewhere, and we will make it a pentagon. Pentagon seems nice, and we'll try to center that off there. There we go. Is that center? There we go. Yep. And you can change the shape, by the way, with these by just pressing the number keys as you're holding it, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, to put up any shape size you want on that shape. And then there's a nice big pentagon. It looks very boss roomish. It's different from the other rooms, and your players will know, well, ooh, I've come to somewhere more important. And we'll make this entryway, it's a bit small of an entryway, maybe we'll make that a bit, we'll make it a bit bigger, give it a bit of a grandiose entrance. And I'm going to leave those black lines there just at the entry to show that there's some wall there, and then we'll put a wee door just going across. So you've got your boss room now with its nice big entrance. So players have entered in, they have gone through one fight, and then there's a boss room. But maybe it's not easy for them to get into the boss room. Maybe they need some sort of key or something, or they need some, I don't know, password that they need to get, so they can't get in there immediately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create this maybe cavern area over here, chop that out, and maybe this could be another battle room because it's nice and big, and maybe to fight a different kind of enemy in here. And then once they've done that, there is this tunnel, maybe man-made, maybe natural, that kind of leads off and into another room. Let's see, let's just make it, yeah, to go back into another cavernish area. Let's make this another big one. And then here they'll have to fight, let's say, a mini boss, and the mini boss will give them something they need to open up the main boss chamber. So when you've got this nice wee layout, so the idea here is your players enter in and they've got two choices. Giving them a choice, not just giving them one direction to go, kind of creates a wee lastly, it's always fun to add in one of these. It's called a red herring, and you basically create a room with no purpose at all, and if you're particularly evil about it, you can just put a trap in there. This room is literally just there for your players to wander into, find nothing, gotta go, no, that was disappointing, and move on. Or they could find a trap in there and nothing else. Depends on how evil you're feeling at the time, but they can be quite fun. And there you have it. That's a very, very basic dungeon built. You should have about 3 to 4 counters in a dungeon, maybe the 4th being the final boss, or maybe the 5th being the final boss that they have to fight in there. Any more than that, and you're going to be going into maybe 2 sessions of a dungeon, or it might be too much that the players would be spent hit point wise and spell wise, and they'll need to slow down then, or they need to take a rest or something. But a dungeon of this size could be done in, you know, maybe one day or one session. Now, after you have made your dungeon, you're happy with it, you've messed around with it, you can go up here to File, and you can save these files, or you can download them onto your own computer, or export them themselves as a printable page. And you can look at all these things here. You can create it as an actual JPEG or a PNG, or if you want to just actually have it printable as an A3. I kind of like using A3 page. They're nice and big. But again, depending on whatever you need, you can mess around with these things and download them and print them off as needed. And the final wee thing I'm going to show you here is you can use that wall drawing tool. If I want to zoom in here, I'm just going to scroll my mouse up a wee bit. You can use that wall drawing tool to kind of add little features and bits and pieces that you might need. Like, I don't know what these are. These are circles. This is a room filled with circles. So here you go. There's barrels. Now, I can't draw to save my life, so you probably could do better, but you want to be careful that you don't do that. And if you do make a mistake, just undo it, but just make sure your circles are filled. There you go. There's a lovely circle. But there you go. You can draw away in there with that if you need to. Now I'm also going to show you two more map making tools. First one is called Dungeon Map Doodler, which again is very similar to the one that we were just using, but I find it just a wee bit more complicated to use. But again, that's me. You might find it easier. Again, you kind of create these rooms wherever you need it, and you have the nice cross hatching on the outside to show what is room and what isn't. So the last one I'm going to show you here is a great tool, RPG Map Maker, Map Editor. It's brilliant. It's very good. You can download it as an actual program onto your computer, or you can run it in your browser. So I'm just going to run it on my browser here. And I find it's very good for using outdoor maps. Here's one I made earlier. You can see it's very sprite looking from 18-bit or 16-bit computer games, but there's a whole load of things you can make with this. You create trees and rocks and stuff. I'll show you here. I'm going to make a wee tree, so I'm just going to zoom right in and click. There's a tree, nice and easy. I'm going to create a bunch of trees, click and drag, loads of trees. I want to delete a tree, just click on the tree you've just created, and it kind of gives you a random assortment of trees as you're clicking away. So it does give it that nice kind of foresty vibe. It's not just one copy paste tree. You can also change the color of these things. So here's some ground, but I don't like that color, so I'm going to click here. Maybe I want it to be blue, or I don't know, that pinky color. So we'll click on that, and then I'm going to select, and then there you go, you got that color floor. So there's a lot of customization abilities with this now. It's very good. You can also go now here, and I'm going to create a new map. So I'm just going to get rid of all that. Yep, goodbye, generate new map. And that's what it starts off as. So you can create your floor. Now I'm going to pick some grass because that's nice, and just cover the whole page. And there you go, you've got your grass. And then you can just start adding things in. You can even add in little peoples to it as well. This is going to be, we got him D&D guy. D&D dude, I think we call him. And you can change the icon to be whatever you want it to be, like a normal NPC, an elite enemy, or a little boss. Now there's things in the way, but you can see the way he changes there. So that can be handy as well. So there's D&D guy. And let's see what else we got. We'll make you can make like more trees around him. You can mess around with this as much as you want. It is very good for outdoor maps, especially, I think the art of it looks brilliant. So I'd highly recommend using this one as well if you get a chance to. And again, you can save this and export it to your computer as well. So you can again turn these into usable sheets that you can chuck down on your D&D table for your game. Okay, and that was a few of the map making tools that I use when I'm making maps. I also do a lot of freehand myself, but again, I am absolutely shocking bad at drawing, so I tend not to want to show people those too often. But if you have any more map making tools out there, there are loads. I'd mention a few now, like Incarnate, do great world maps. There's a few more out there. Please leave a comment down below if you think of any more, and I will link in the description to these websites that I was using. So I hope this helps, and if you could drop a like to the video and subscribe, that'd be great. Thank you very much, and goodbye.